Here's another story for you. One I think some of you have been waiting for. At night in dreams, my dog can talk. For those of you who know or don't know, I have a 9.5-year-old golden retriever named Anastasia. She also answers to Annie. She actually answers to a number of names, but those are the two that suit her best. She's a good dog and loving dog, and I've had her since she was 12 weeks old. And there have been a few odd times in my life when I've experienced dreams about her. Most of them are just normal dreams where one dreams about their pet. But one in particular is when Anastasia and I had a full conversation. Now, I don't know if this was her channeling someone who's long since gone. Was it me in my own mind? Or was this her only way of being able to truly communicate with me was through my dreams? Well, in this dream, I was at work, sadly, and I was at my desk when suddenly Anastasia came trotting around the corner. And I said, Annie, what are you doing here? So she came up to me, and she jumped up at me to put her paws on my chest for her hug. And she looked at me and she said, I wanted to see where you go every day when you leave me. I said, okay, well, that's good. I'm glad to see you. This was a dream, so obviously this didn't upset me or surprise me in any way, but it was good. So we talked a little bit more, and she said, do you have anything to eat? Not that my dog has never asked me for food before. I said, sure. And next thing I knew, we were outside, and we were sitting having spaghetti and meatballs. She was sitting at a table with me. She said, you know, I miss you sometimes when you leave. I said, I know, honey. I miss you sometimes, too. She said, sometimes I'm afraid you're not going to come back. I said, oh, I know, but I've got to go to work. These are things I have to do. She said, I'm afraid you're never going to come back, like Daddy Mark and all the cats. And it struck me as I realized what she was asking and what she was saying to me. How do you explain mortality to a dog? I said, well, let's try it like this. I said, well, Annie, sometimes you'll go to sleep, and it'll be a very long sleep, and you don't get up from that, and you don't come back from that. And this is what happens to us. And if we're lucky and we're good, then maybe we'll see each other again when we all go to that final sleep. So she looked at me for a moment, and she said, do you mean that they died? I said, yes, they died. She said, well, why didn't you just say that? I said, all right, well, what did you want me to say? She said, well, you know, first Cleopatra left the house, and she didn't come back. Then Sneezy left the house, and he didn't come back. Dante left the house and didn't come back. Shotzi, Catfish, they left the house and didn't come back. And you were sad. And I could smell that sadness on you. She said, then Daddy Mark left. He never came back. And you never said anything to me. And I could smell a whole house full of sad people, but you never said anything. Why didn't you just tell me? She said, I wouldn't have waited. So I thought about that, and I said, well, what do you mean you wouldn't have waited? She said, well, why would I wait for somebody that's died? You just never told me they weren't coming back. So I was still a little confused by this. I said, but again, I don't understand. What do you mean you wouldn't have waited for them? She said, why would I wait for somebody who's passed away? I mean, that's nothing to be sad about. I mean, that's simply, you know, when someone's given up the mortal husk, they've passed on to another alternate state of reality, and leaving that husk behind, there's no reason to be upset about that, because it's certainly a simple procedure, going and having that altered state of yourself eventually, because you'll transition over from this to another one yourself. It was probably the jaw-dropping look on my face and stupid look on my face that she She realized I was a bit confused by this further. So she motioned up to me and she raised her paw up for shake. So I took her paw in mine and she said, think of it like this. We'll go into a big field together one day, and there we'll run around and play and romp, and there'll be things to smell and eat, and we'll all be together again. Now, I don't like condescending attitude, but, coming from my dog, that kind of made it even worse. And I said, all right, I get it. She said, seriously, we have to move on from here. And with that, we were up at Bulls Run Falls, up in Connecticut, one of our favorite hiking trails. She said, walk with me. Okay. So I just followed behind her. She said, you live in the past. I said, okay. What do you mean by that? She said, you live in the past. Sometimes you get very sad. You get very sad for things that have happened before. She said, that's not good for you. That's like walking around after having stepped in really wet poop, and you're carrying it around with you, and the stink just follows you wherever you go. I said, what an analogy from a dog. All right, but I can't help but saying she might be a little accurate on this. I said, okay, what's your advice? She said, live in the now. She said, I always think about it. I think about the past. I think about the future. But now is where I am. I said, okay. So then what do we do with this? She said, do you miss me when I'm gone? I said, what do you mean when you're gone? When you go off to work and I'm not there with you, do you miss me? I said, of course I do. And with that, I imagined myself home in bed. And she's laying next to me in the bed with her head resting on my stomach. And she's looking up at me with her big, brown, soulful eyes. She said, do you miss me when you go away in the morning? I said, of course I miss you when I go away in the morning. I talk about you to my friends at work. I'm always thinking of you. I look at pictures of you. She said, then why would you miss me? She said, because I'm right there with you. I'm in you. I'm with you. You're thinking about me. You're loving me right then and there. Why would you miss that? And I said, all right. I can understand that. She said, do you really? I said, no. She said, do you think it's okay to love me? I said, of course. She said, do you think it's okay to be around me? I said, of course. She said, do you think it's okay to miss me when I'm not there? I said, all right, yes. She said, but do you still love me when I'm not there? I said, yes. She said, then what's the problem? And I knew she was right. It took a dog to tell me that. So I laid with her head laying on my belly. I stroked her head, and she looked up at me with her beautiful brown eyes. And I said to her, Anastasia, I love you. And she looked up at me, and just like Hannah Solo, she said, I know. And with that, I fell asleep. The rest of the way, the second time, in my dream, I fell asleep. When I woke up, she was laying next to the bed. It was our typical morning routine. We got up, got things ready, went out for our morning pee and our romp. Because even before she pees, when I take her out, she has to run up to me, play, have me pet her, rub her belly, then she'll go out and go to the bathroom. Only then. Because the love is more important to her. The affection is more important first. We did our routine. I went. I gave her her little bribe, which is her biscuit, her dog biscuit, which is my way of saying goodbye. I kissed her. I rubbed her face. I said, I love you. You be a good girl today. And she looked at me with her tongue lolling out. And the pure love, unadulterated love in her eyes, and she smiled at me. And as I left the bedroom, I could hear the sound of chewing and a dog biscuit quickly disappearing. I got myself ready, grabbed my bag, backed the car up. I was backing the car up out of the driveway, and I could look back, and I could see her through my front window, through the front door, the window over the top of it. I could see her at the top of the stairs staring back at me. And part of me really missed her. But I knew she wasn't missing me, because she was going to go back into that bedroom, lay down, close her eyes, and dream about being with me right then and there. So she wasn't going to miss me. She was just waiting. When I got to work that day, first thing I did was walk up to a couple of my coworkers. And they asked me how my day was, how things had gone. I said, oh, pretty good, pretty good. And the same question they always ask, how's Anastasia doing? I said, she is doing just fine. I said, that dog of mine that I love. And I knew she was. And I reminded them. I said, you know, sometimes at night, in my dreams, my dog can talk to me. And that's it. In honor of Miss Anastasia, because she asked me to do this, I have 2 poems that I wrote for her. This one is called Doggy Doggy. Doggy Doggy, I'm asleep. Get on my bed, your toes do creep. I know you need a morning run to pee and romp and roll in fun. So I will drag myself from bed and pat your fuzzy smiling head, and we will now go out to play and start another happy day. This one's called Dog's Eye View. Running through the bush of trees to catch elusive squirrel meat, it's not as easy as it seems and always ends in my defeat. Other scents distract me now, and other attentions drift away to other entertaining thoughts that occupy my busy day. Playing is a noble art, one that's often overlooked by people who will sit and stare at their computers or their books. But running free without a care can ease the stress of toil. The fear and angst that goes with life is what we seek to foil. And honest care for those we love is what we should endeavor. For sharing happiness with friends is always thought as clever. So run and chase the chipmunk hordes or lie in sunny fields. The friendship sown upon these days brings more than normal yields. So bark and sniff and run away. I will not leave, my friend, today, for you are here with me to stay. I'll always love you anyway. Although some of these stories you've heard tonight might seem a little sad, they are, but that's life. It's mixed with sadness and happiness.